The old Lawson mansion sat quietly on the outskirts of Boston, its tall windows reflecting the pale light of an overcast afternoon. Inside, 76-year-old Henry Lawson lay in his ornate bedroom, his body rigid with chronic pain. Once a formidable businessman, Henry now struggled with even the simplest movements. His son, Daniel Lawson, a 40-year-old self-made millionaire, often visited, but life's demands meant these visits were sporadic. Lately, Daniel had noticed a troubling change. His father's pain seemed sharper, his eyes dimmer, his voice weaker. Doctors assured him everything was fine, but Daniel couldn't shake the unease gnawing at him. Evelyn, Henry's 35-year-old wife, appeared the perfect caretaker. Elegant, composed, and always impeccably dressed, she managed the household with meticulous precision. She controlled the medications, insisting the locks on the cabinet were for Henry's safety. She smiled politely at Daniel's arrival, yet he sensed a tension in her posture, a subtle stiffness that suggested annoyance at his unannounced visit. Daniel stepped into his father's room to find Henry propped against a mountain of pillows, trembling slightly. The old man's eyes were glossy, a mixture of fatigue and fear. Daniel adjusted the blanket over him and held his hand gently, trying to convey reassurance. Henry's weak grip tightened around Daniel's wrist, his lips moving in a barely audible whisper. "She hurting me," he gasped, his voice almost lost in the room's silence. Daniel froze, disbelief and alarm racing through him. Before he could speak, the soft creak of footsteps on the polished wooden floor alerted him to Evelyn's return. She entered the room with her usual calm, her eyes flicking momentarily toward Daniel with a guarded sharpness. In that instant, Daniel saw something he had never noticed before, a flicker of coldness, a shadow behind the practiced warmth. The realization struck him hard. Everything he had assumed about his father's care, about his stepmother's devotion, might be a carefully constructed lie, and his father had been living in pain, both physical and emotional, without anyone noticing. Daniel's mind raced. He had just crossed the threshold of a truth that had remained hidden in the shadows of the grand house for far too long, and he knew that discovering it would change everything.